This little macro lens from Canon for the EF-M mount has very interesting features. About that feature and the overall performance coming up. Hi there, my name is Peter Forsgard and I am a professional photographer from Helsinki, Finland. And before we start talking about this lens, a disclaimer. This lens was sent to me by Canon Finland. They did not ask me to do this video, nor did they say what I should say about the lens. So everything I say are my own opinions. Let's start. Like I said, this is a macro lens and it is for the EF-M mount, like this M50 Mark II camera. Macro photography is very interesting genre of photography and it opens up a whole new world. And it's a good genre also that you don't need to find a spectacular location for macro photography. You can find suitable subject for macro at home. So it's a great way of photographing and practicing photography at home. Just take some normal household items and see what they look like when you're doing some macro photography and photographing them with a macro lens. Really interesting and nice way of learning photography. This lens has a focal length of 28mm, which is quite close to 45mm if we're talking about full frame terms. And when I'm talking about full frame terms, I mean the angle of view. This is of course a 28mm lens, but the angle of view is equivalent to a roughly 45mm lens in full frame. It also has a built-in image stabilizer, which is really good. It's about 3.5 stops, and that will make it a lot easier for handheld macro shots. And that's a good thing, because using a tripod is of course recommended when using when shooting macro, but it can be a bit hard because you need to move the tripod and everything. So handheld macro shots are a lot more convenient. And it has, of course, autofocus, so it makes it a bit easier. The closest focusing distance is 0.97mm, and with super macro setting it's 0.93mm, so you can get pretty close with it. And the magnification is 1, so it is a true macro lens. The fastest aperture is 3.5, which might sound that it's too dark or should be a faster lens. But we have to remember that when we focusing really close, the depth of field is very, very shallow. So we need to stop down anyways. So usually macro lens that is 3.5 is totally fine. And when we're stopping down, we will increase the depth of field. So I don't think it's a problem that it's only 3.5. It might be for general photography a bit too dark, but with macro photography, it's okay. The aperture has 7 blades, so the bokeh is quite pleasing. Then the special feature that this lens has. It has a built-in macro light. There's a switch on the side where you can turn it on and off, and it had 2 different stages or 2 different strengths. And as you can see from these examples, it's quite powerful. Actually, it surprised me a bit because usually I thought that, a small macro light like this, there's no use. But as you can see from these images, yes, there is a use for this light. Because when you're really close, it's really hard to put light between the camera and the subject, because the lens might even cast a shadow on the subject if you're really, really close, like you are with the super macro on this lens. So this is a very clever idea from Canon, and I'm really glad that they did put one of these lights on this lens, so you don't need to have any extra light or anything like that. And also it's continuous LED light, so it's easy to make the exposure. You don't have to figure out calculations about the exposure when using flash. I think this is a better option, and you also see in real time what the light will look like on the subject. And then a few words about image quality. Like most modern lenses, there are not really big issues with the image quality, and the same goes with this lens. It's very sharp, like most macro lenses are, and it might not be the best lens for general photography because it tends to be a bit over sharp for that. But that's more a matter of taste of what you like. So if you get this, of course you can use it for something else also than macro, but it has a bit different characteristics because it is a macro lens. So what did I think about this lens? Well, as I said in the beginning, that macro photography is really fascinating, and for that, if you haven't done macro photography, you should try it because it is so fascinating. And this lens is really good start for that because it's quite small, and as I said, you can use it for other things too. It has a very good focal length, around 45mm, which is quite good for general photography also. And there's nothing wrong with the image quality. And it has the macro light, which I really liked a lot. It makes macro photography so much easier. When we talk about the light, of course, it doesn't help with anything else except for the light, which is, of course, quite important. The price is also quite reasonable. And here are some more videos about Canon cameras that you might want to watch. But hey, thanks for watching and bye for now.